Hello and welcome back to the Steel and Velvet podcast. My name is Macey Marks and this is my husband Nash Marks.
Hola.
Every
Hello.
time. I swear he does it every time.
I do have a tendency of saying
Hola. Hello.
hola, hello. People walking, I just can't say, hey, how's it going? I don't think it's possible for me.
You're so quirky like that.
I am. That's me.
Anyway, we hope you guys had a good week. We are trying out a different setup for today because we have limited options in our small apartment, but we're trying something out. We have these cute chairs. So hopefully this works out. I kind of like the way it looks, and yeah.
Macy is the design person of the marriage.
I'm really not, because when we first started dating, I had absolutely no style or no anything. But it's become a really big fascination of mine.
Your style has improved.
Thank you. I think it was horrible.
Not that it was terrible. I don't think it was terrible.
It wasn't great.
It just has improved.
It wasn't great. But I will say, I take a lot of, I don't know, I just like fashion a lot more than I did before, whether that be clothes or decoration. So anyway, hope this is okay and looks better than our living room. Today we are going to be talking about the Sabbath, and what the Sabbath is, how it is important to a marriage, just your Christian walk. Wow, tongue twister. In general, so yes.
Yeah. Sabbath. It's important. Especially if you're like us and you're getting started out in marriage. Obviously, Mason and I certainly do not have all the answers. We won't even have the answers.
4 months in and we're pros.
Will not have the answers even at 40 years.
No.
We'll just have some suggestions. But understanding the Sabbath, I think, for us, it'll change as we grow in our marriage probably. But it's something that we've definitely been figuring out as we're starting marriage, because I think we both Sabbath differently.
Very differently. Holy cow.
And especially for me, being in ministry, the typical Sabbath day is, I would say for most people, is a Sunday. And that's not really possible for me. Really, so I'll catch a few hours. But Sundays are typically a work day. So just figuring out Sabbath, I think, has been even important for us. So if any of you guys relate to it, I'll be curious to hear about that.
Yeah.
But Macy's got some verses that...
Well, I just wanted to start, the reason we are doing this topic is because I feel like that the Sabbath has been kind of very prevalent in the past couple weeks for us. Mm-hmm. But more specifically, just we haven't really figured out what it is, because like you said, our Sabbaths are very different from one another. So that's why I want to go in, I want to define what the Sabbath is, but also just talk about after, what that looks like for me, what that looks like for you, how to balance that out, even though we don't really have the balance, but looking at scripture and what does it say about Sabbath. So I need to find my place.
But I would also say this, the first step of finding your Sabbath, number one, is connecting with the Holy Spirit, seeking that out, waiting for an answer on that, but also communicating with your spouse. So I don't know if Macy and I have the total balance yet, but we've definitely communicated about it.
Yeah, I mean,
and we let each other know what typically, we enjoy for our Sabbath or for our rest. And there has to be compromise on both sides.
Yeah. Let me read this verse on what the Sabbath is, and then we can go into more of what you're saying about how we kind of discuss and talk about our Sabbaths when it comes down to it.
Great.
So Genesis 20:8 through 12 says, "Remember to observe the Sabbath day by..." Oh my gosh, I'm going to cut this part out. "Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for the ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day for rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything within them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy." So I also thought it was kind of funny. He said, even your livestock can't work that day. Something we have a lot more value than livestock. So obviously we should take this to heart, Yeah. But, I think we in our Christian walk, if you're a Christian, you typically try, or the goal is to try and live as Christ-like as possible. And so if God even rested himself, he worked for 6 days, rested on the seventh, and he instructs us to do so because he wants us to be more like Christ and more like him. So that's where I think it says it right there. It tells us what to do. If we honor him and are obedient to his call for us to rest on that day, then he'll bless us and honor us back, which is just very simple in and of itself. But yeah,
finding that day doesn't have to be Sunday.
Yeah.
Like I said, most people, it is a Sunday, but as I think that both of us as we're getting into ministry, because you help so much, we both lead the student ministry. I just might be getting paid for it.
Free worker.
But nice free labor.
No, I love it. No, I love it.
It's
serving the Lord. That is why, and I love it. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's
but
great.
Because those Sundays are busy for us and we're pouring out so much, even if, we have a couple hours at home on a Sunday, my brain can't shut off because I'm prepping for what's to come in the evening.
12, 14-hour day.
So I can't even totally relax on that. So, Fridays are a good rest day. But do you want to talk about what the rest days look like?
Whew, okay. So basically, first I want to say I think rest is anything that brings you joy or just comfort. And so some people, that's literally doing nothing and laying on the couch watching a movie. Nash.
Sweet.
That is Nash. But then other people, I thrive off of being around people and bring me to a coffee shop, get me a coffee. We don't have to talk. It would be great if we talked. No, we have to talk. That's a good rest day for me.
I don't think that one's
But
fun.
Going and getting a coffee and just hanging out, being in the sun, being in nature, it is very relaxing to me. So that's my type of relaxation. His is the polar opposite. He'd rather stay home, which is great. And so that's what Nash was saying earlier, was it's because we are such opposites. I know not every couple has that, they're not polar opposites, but for us specifically, it comes down to, I'm typically at home, and so I'm eager to get out of the house. But Nash has been at work all day and been working, 8-hour, 10-hour days sometimes, and so he's just coming home, he wants to just relax, especially at the end of the week. He has Friday, Saturday off. Friday's I don't want to do anything, just let me relax, and I
Fridays
get that.
Are typically
and I get that.
Down on the couch kind of a day for sure.
So typically a Saturday or a Friday for us is what Nash wants to do. He had a way more physically demanding week than I did, and so that's where you just, for your own health, need to rest and figure that out.
Yeah. And it's not even physically, it's mentally. And so...
But it comes out in the physical sense,
right.
too.
And so that's where the communication comes in, is where I can tell you, tomorrow I really just need a day where I can completely shut off my brain. Anything that doesn't involve thinking tomorrow sounds like the best thing to me, And so if that's playing a game outside, then that's what we'll do. But if that's watching a movie we're watching 2 movies and taking those 4 hours of just nothing, then that's what that's what I would ask you to do.
I have to come in with a sacrificial love that I see Christ model, which is so difficult, but I need to practice it, and I'm trying to practice it more.
That is so not natural for you.
I will go stir crazy, and I honestly get anxious sometimes when I sit too long, which is ironic that I'm at home now. You'd think, I don't know. So that's not in my nature, and my instinct is to just freak out if I spend too much time doing nothing. I take it as being lazy, even though I've had a productive week, or Nash has had a productive week.
Yeah.
So that's definitely where I need to come in, or whoever the busier spouse is, and just be they need rest. This is how they're programmed. God made them this way, and you love them. You married them for that reason. I married him because he's calm, because he's collected, because Nash is just so, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but those are your characteristics, and I love them so much, and I married that, and so I need to respect.
You did.
And I need to respect that you need that time.
Yeah.
Then come Saturday, that's my time, and that's typically when we go out and do something.
We establish Saturday is the
Macey Day.
Okay, we're gonna go downtown Charleston. We're gonna go. I was gonna say the beach, but the beach can be Fridays as well for me, because if I go out and surf, that's still
He loves the beach.
Very shut off.
Yeah.
It's so calm.
It's
But
so-
Saturdays are going to a coffee shop. We're gonna do Devo. Or we're gonna go somewhere reading our book. Like it's
That
very,
is like my favorite thing ever in the
Yeah.
world. Like, oh, I just cannot
Yeah.
express enough how much I love when you initiate like going out places or
Mhm.
doing that stuff. Even if we like I said, we can read and not talk to each other for like an hour, and I would still be like, great. I also want to talk about how we talked about how Sabbath is important, rest is important, what rest looks like for different people. But this also has been a topic I felt like came up. Nash's boss told him, I guess both of us, just not to get caught up in the terminology of Sabbath. I forget where it says it. Let me see. Mark 2:27. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. So just because God made it for us that we would rest and find that we will get filled by that. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's made for us. We are not made for it. It's going to be unnatural for us to do this, but it's so important that we sit in this. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, it was made for us. We can't dictate what that is. We can't dictate what our Sabbath is going to be. Sabbath can be a whole day. Sabbath can be little moments throughout the week, especially you being in ministry. If somebody calls you when you're technically supposed to be off, you're not going to be like, sorry, I can't help you there. That's not a godly characteristic to just shut down somebody just because it's your day off. So that's where I want to say, like, Sabbath was made for us, not us made for the Sabbath. We can't just choose to be off. And the Sabbath isn't just supposed to be a Sunday. Like you said, the Sabbath is supposed to be just any time that you can find rest. But I want to look at Matthew 12. This is basically Jesus is going to... I'll just read the chapter really quick. Is that okay? And then we can... Not the chapter, but the segment. And then we can go into what it talks about.
Great.
So it says, the discussion about the Sabbath. At about that time, Jesus was walking through the grain fields, or some grain fields, on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, so they began breaking off some heads of grain and eating them. But some Pharisees saw them do it and protested. Look, your disciples are breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath. Jesus said to them, haven't you read in the scriptures what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He went into the house of God, and he and his companions broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of bread that only the priests were allowed to eat. And haven't you read in the law of Moses that the priests on duty in the temple may work on the Sabbath? I tell you, there is one here who is greater than the temple. But you would not have condemned my innocent disciples if you knew the meaning of this scripture. I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices, for the Son of Man is Lord, even over the Sabbath. So, not only is Jesus saying, I am bigger than the temple, I am bigger than any of these laws that the Pharisees have created or whatever. Like, Jesus is over that. He's trying to make that known, but he also ties in in the Old Testament of David and Moses not technically obliging by the laws of Sabbath, right? Yeah. Like the technicalities of it, because he's saying, like, I am Lord, I am over all. It is not as, what's it called? Cookie cutter. Yeah. That's how I receive it and how I take it. So just kind of emphasizing the point that you said earlier, or that I said earlier about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you read it, but did he talk about, like, if your ox or your mule were to fall in a ditch?
No, right, but you can go into that.
I don't know if that's in Matthew or it might be in Mark, where it talks about Sabbath again. But Jesus talks about if your mule were to fall in the ditch, would you just leave it until the Sabbath was over, right? You're probably not going to do that. And so there are mules, if you're listening on audio, I'm doing
air quotes.
There are mules in our lives sometimes that need to be taken out of the ditch. And so that comes with discernment. Again, it comes with communication with your spouse. If it's okay that you guys, take a break from the Sabbath to go and, entertain what needs to be entertained. And so with these things, you're going to have things in a ditch. But there are things that God calls us to work through. Kingdom work doesn't stay in the ditch. God's work does not stay in a ditch. And as long as you're walking with the Spirit and, that relationship with Christ is solid, I think you're going to be in tune with that, and you're going to be able to understand what things are pretty urgent and what things might be able to wait till the next day, and that also comes with relationship if it is a specific person. But my ultimate point is that there are just going to be some things that might interrupt your Sabbath or that little rest that you have, and just try to seek it out throughout the week, or you just take what you had and you're grateful for it, because sometimes we're not always going to get, exactly what we need on a Sabbath, but to still be very intentional with the Sabbath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
We're intentional, but we're not expecting it to go perfectly.
Yeah. Because that's legalism. When you let that law dictate what blessing you're going to... Like, you don't want to rob somebody of a blessing just because you're going to be legalistic about that. I also want to point out, like, obviously Nash and I are very much in a church world. Like, he works for a church that takes up a lot of our time in our lives, but it will also happen to you if you work at, I don't know, coal mining. I don't know, like, just like anything.
Coal mining?
I don't know. That's the first thing that came to my head, but like even just other jobs
Hopefully
that
we got
aren't.
some coal miners listening to the podcast.
That would be insane.
Comment down below if you're a coal miner.
Definitely not. Okay, but I just say that even though you might not get a call, like, or you're not as expected to get a call late at night, or if a day you're off, I mean, you still are a Christian. You still have these responsibilities as a Christian to spread the word, and so you don't want to rob somebody of that. But don't take it as like, well, they work for a church or whatever. So, okay, I want to close this out and just talk about why I do think it is so important to find rest in the Sabbath. Obviously, he tells us to do it for a reason, and I said before that it's because he wants us to be more Christ-like, but to break that down, I think that he wants us to have a Sabbath and to have rest, because when we do that and we are filled by him, it's so much clearer what we need to do, how we need to tackle certain situations, how I can improve my marriage, how I can figure out what I am supposed to do with a job or with parenting or with whatever it may be. When you draw closer to him, I mean, it's so simple. We hear to pray all the time. We hear to get in the word. And yes, we need to do that daily. We do, because if you don't surround yourself with this stuff, then how do you think you're going to get used to it? But I think this is another characteristic that is often overlooked because we live in such a go, what's it called? Life and just a society, that it's so easy to just think like, I think I'm so lazy if I don't go and do something one day. That's not the case. I should be utilizing that time to rest and hear what God is trying to tell me to do. And I'm currently reading a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, and I think I'm going to do like a podcast just on this book, because it goes much more into this topic too, of just not having to go so fast. And I mean, God did it from the get-go, and he's been telling us to do it since, so we need to focus on the Sabbath. What does that look like for you? What does that look like for your spouse? How can you communicate that effectively? How can you implement those steps into your life, and how is it been rewarding to you? Because there's no way that it isn't. God's not going to tell you to do something that it might be out of your comfort zone, but it's not negative in any way, shape, or form. So we need to stop viewing it like that. So that are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on Sabbath and that chapter in Matthew, the chapter in Exodus,
and a couple of my thoughts.
And Nash spoke a little bit, if you guys didn't hear him. But yeah, I really hope that this was encouraging. I hope it made sense. I'm not a speaker, and I tend to feel like my thoughts get jumbled up. So I hope that I communicated effectively, that we communicated effectively, and that you felt encouraged by this. And hopefully you can start practicing the Sabbath, because it is so, so, so important. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks
I hope that you have a good week, and we will see you next week. Yeah.
Peace.